Hello and welcome back to Blue Royalty, a London is Blue show dedicated to the Chelsea women. It's the international break, so we haven't had a chance to watch Chelsea women, but that does not mean the content stops. Oh no, we are here to look back at the season, how it's gone so far, take your questions and look ahead to some of the games we've got coming up in November and December. I'm joined as always by Abdullah. How are you recovering from the Abdullah Jessy cricketing derby that took place this morning?
I think if I wasn't already sick from this flu and stomach bug that I've had all weekend, I think I'd just be sick from this. Why do they have to take it so close? It's like, it's the hope that kills you. It's the GIF I've been using all day. Like, so close yet so far, but it is what it is. England deserved the win, so I'll put my hands up. Great win.
So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, England won the T20 World Cup this morning, beating Pakistan in what was a much tenser game than I thought it was going to end up being. So yeah, it was quite a stressful watch at points. But Nick Valeni, fresh from barbecue brunch, which sounds delicious. How are you doing?
That is right. The boys are all in town. We're doing a little podcast planning for 2023, and they flew into my lovely city of Kansas City, and it's about 0 degrees Celsius here right now, very cold. And yeah, so we've just kind of drank whiskey to stay warm and had some barbecue to make it all work. And yeah, it's been a good weekend for sure.
Yeah, because famously you don't touch booze when it's like warm. It's only when it drops below a certain temperature. Yeah,
you guys know me. I'm a teetotaler.
Exactly. I've got you down to a T there. All right. So yeah, as I said, we'll be looking ahead, looking back at some of the games we've had this season. We'll start. I'm going to say that all of that again. As I said, we will be looking back at the season so far. So let's kind of kick off with that. So there's been 7 WSL games, a couple of Champions League games, mostly wins. In fact, all wins, apart from 1-2-1 defeat to Liverpool. Sitting second in the table. Nick, what have you been making of these kind of, first nine or so games that we've played?
Yeah, I mean, I think the overwhelming theme that's in my mind is like just upheaval, right? I mean, if it's new squad players that have come in and tried to fit into the existing structure, or unfortunately, if it's, Emma Hayes having an emergency surgery that's kept her off the sidelines for the last, better part of a month, it's just been a lot of change happening. But the team has fought through a lot of that adversity. I think outside of looking back at it, incredibly strange result against Liverpool. I mean, it's just, I don't know how many times out of 10 that result happens. It might just be the one that actually happened. I think the team has played relatively well. And of these matches, the one that really sticks out to me is that 1-0 win in Paris. I think there was a grit and determination that the team showed in a bad artificial pitch, pissing down rain, not fun conditions. The team barely kind of getting started for the season, but starting the Champions League group with an incredibly important win against PSG at their spot. So I look back on that. That might be a turning point in the season as we look at the story of it.
Yeah, Abdullah, this season definitely, as Nick kind of alluded to, started off on a bit of a bum note. Liverpool are yet to win another match after that. They really went, okay, one and done. We've beaten the champions. That's enough. But I think we can broadly see this run of games we've had into this international break as, one of gradual improvement, moving in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's been the story of Chelsea for a while, right? It's always that slow, gradual move into the season before they really hit form and really strive into, when it really matters and winning game after game after game. And I think that's, again, Chelsea's kind of MO this season, where obviously they happen to lose the game to the team that got promoted. They've happened to not won anything after that. And then since then, Chelsea have just gone strength to strength. And we touched upon this, right, in the preview season episode, where we talked about the constant changes in system and formation, and Chelsea always start slow because of those changes in the new players. And I guess that was what it was. Just needed time for the team to kind of come in and get used to what was the new requirements, what were the new system, what new tactics, and let the new players embed in. And now I think we're starting to see Chelsea really start to kind of settle in. And even if they haven't played well in patches, they've got the wins. And I think that's the most important thing.
It's been kind of a test and learn though, right? I mean, there has been a ton of lineup changes and formation changes and approaches to games even. I've almost seen Chelsea revert back to some of like the brilliant counterattacking they did 2 years ago at times where they'll suck teams in and then spring a break on them. And it's just been kind of an interesting look at it, Jesse. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I see a team that hasn't quite figured out what their best permutation is yet.
No, definitely. And I think there are a lot of factors for that. One is, as we kind of already touched on, this decision to shift the system around, which I think broadly feels like it is the right decision in terms of what we've managed to get out of players and to show that flexibility on being able to use the back three and being able to use the back four genuinely in a way that I don't think we could last season. But at the same time, obviously, games in this league come thick and fast, which is mind-boggling to me, really, given there's only 12 teams. Like, I don't really understand how it always feels like you're like boom, boom, boom. But I think especially because we missed that first week of fixtures, and I do think we were incredibly unlucky, because I think if we play West Ham at Stamford Bridge on the opening day of the season, we run through things in a very, very different way. And that just is what it is. But, you only have to look at Manchester City, who also kind of got caught cold and then had to play us for their second game. And suddenly, they're 6 points behind. So it's hard to find the time and space to figure these things out. And I think the most heartening thing is that even if it's not always been pretty, I do feel like in the way we've played, we've seen not only the skill level and the kind of tactical awareness, I think, improve, but also just the confidence come back into this team, right? Abdullah, like we've just seen players start to be like, oh yeah, this is who I'm playing with now. Like, and it must be hard, right? Like for a Sam Kerr to be like, suddenly I'm playing with like Lauren James to my right, who didn't play with me at all last season.
Yeah, exactly. And while you know how good how good your teammates are, whether you've seen them from different teams and whatever, it's a whole different thing once you start playing with them and once you start getting used to the way they play. Because the minute you get used to the way they play, everything becomes second nature to you. The movements they make, where they're going to pass, where they're going to leave the ball, you kind of get that sense. Everything becomes a lot more easier and becomes more flowy, especially with the players. Like you used Lauren James there, the players that are going to start week in, week out. And in this case, Lauren James is one of those players where, the first couple of weeks, maybe it didn't look as smooth. She almost looked like Lauren James, maybe a little bit isolated, kind of coming into positions, doing her thing. Other players weren't coming in line. But, now you just look at the combination partnership that Lauren James and Sam Kerr have created together. And it's like they've been playing as a strike partnership for years, right? They've got that understanding between them. It's the same thing when you've got other players, and obviously but then you've also got a new look front three, regardless of whether Guru is playing there with Sam and Lauren. Guru has to get used to the movements as well, because it's a new dynamic with a third different person in there. So it's not just the new players with the old players, but it's a dynamic of the partnerships as a three, midfield two. Buchanan in that back line struggled a lot in the beginning of the season, right? So now we're getting to a place where, all right, now we know, okay, Buchanan's better maybe possibly as the wider center back if we're playing a three. Magda's getting used to a left back role. So there have been almost so many changes that everybody just kind of had to get used to it, build the partnerships, and now we're starting to see that it's kind of everyone's getting used to it. So yeah, I definitely think so.
Nick, what are you looking at for this Chelsea side and thinking, okay, it's looking good, we're moving in the right direction, but is there something that stands out to you as this is something that needs to kind of be improved upon in the next month or so if we're going to continue looking dangerous in the WSL and in the Champions League?
Yeah, I think it's probably more for the Champions League than it is for the WSL, because I think outside of Arsenal, on our day, many teams can't hang, right? I mean, even though the league is improving, even though Villa is certainly improved year over year, and that was a tougher game than we anticipated, it's not as much for the league. It's definitely for the Champions League, though, and that is, I think, the spacing and the passing between defense and midfield is still the thing that I'm kind of looking at as an Achilles heel of this team. And it might be because we have had a ton of rotation in the back line, and Kadisha Buchanan hasn't necessarily settled in as quickly as I would have anticipated. in these moments, and maybe there's just a little bit of hesitancy that she still feels like she has to do everything herself carrying the ball, which is a, kind of a difficult thing when the rest of the team kind of plays more fluid. But then you look at the midfield and it's like, how much are you asking Aaron Cuthbert to do versus maybe someone like Sophie Ingle or another rotational partner like Jessy Fleming? I just don't feel like that's really gone that well. And we've played a lot down the wings, and a lot of our breaks have gone long rather than a more kind of standard buildup. And so that would be something that I think if they're working on in training, like that really is the difference between a good team and a great team. How quickly can they break out of a press situation? Because we know in Europe, we're more likely than not to be pressed the hell out of. And if we can beat those presses, if we can make those quick passes, there's a lot of room in behind for Sam Kerr to do her business, for Fran Kirby to do it. Like there's a ton of opportunity there, but I just don't think that we have effectively done that to this point.
Yeah, and I think something that'll be really interesting to look at around that, and this is a player we're going to talk a bit more when we get into your questions, is the role of Khadija Buchanan in that. Because I think something that really stood out to me, and we talked about it in our match review, but in that Manchester United game, was if she's on the right side, she is going to step out with the ball so much more confidently and can be maybe the key there to linking those parts of the pitch up. So I think that will be something that's really worth keeping an eye on as we move into the rest of November, into December. But Abdullah, Arsenal are above us. They've got the only 100% record in the league. Then you've kind of got City, who I would say are performing fine at the moment, but they've played pretty easy games. United equally look good in their easy games, then lost to us. What are you making of the other title contenders in this year's WSL?
I think one thing's for sure. I think it's tighter at the top than it's ever been. I mean, you just look at the points tally now, 18, 18, 12, 15, and obviously there's a drop off to 9, but even those 9s can easily come up to, 11s and 12s, and suddenly you have, 4 or 5 teams up there scrambling for that top 4 position. And I think that in itself is a huge statement of the leagues, saying that there's at least 5-6 teams that can be battling for the top 4 spots, which is great from a league perspective. But I think for Chelsea and for the other top 2-3 teams, it's kind of a warning that anybody can take points off anybody now, and that was always the case. But now it's even more precarious that you can't afford to drop any points, because if you do, someone's going to be there to take it off you as well. So if somebody does take it off, you got to take advantage, but you got to make sure that you don't lose the points, because it's so tight. Over there, Arsenal, I think they've looked really good. Obviously, they've won their games. They haven't lost. They've got a goal difference of plus 17, which is crazy. They've conceded 1 goal, and that's insane. And the last time we saw Arsenal play like this was, probably a few years ago, to this extent of being this good. But, and I think with United, I think they'll be a good challenger for the top 4. Obviously, we saw they lost, the game against us. So maybe there's a little bit of work to be done there. But City, I think, slow off the blocks. I mean, they've got 12 points, but slow off the blocks. They've got a lot of new players, a lot more than Chelsea do. Still trying to figure out combinations. I remember there was one game, I think, Jessy, you tweeted it. They played 4 fullbacks in that one game. I mean, if that's the case, then they're still, yeah, it's just crazy. They're still trying to figure out their team, So I think while teams are going to figure this out, I think it's going to come down to Chelsea and Arsenal ultimately to see who wins it. But it's not going to be as easy or as smooth as it was last year. I think there's going to be a lot more teams who have a say in who ends up being second and third in this title race.
Yeah, Manchester United have the opportunity to do us what would be a really, really big favour next weekend. So I will be at the Emirates cheering United on. And just from obviously from Chelsea's perspective, I want Arsenal to lose. But I think it would also be really exciting if we saw Arsenal drop points sooner rather than later and just kind of blow this whole thing open again. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, that was kind of the interesting part of last season, right? Is Arsenal obviously get that win, quote unquote, with 2 offside goals against us in the first game, and then we're behind the 8 ball again, very much similar to this season. And then about mid-season, they started floundering a little bit, right? They started dropping points a little bit, and still, even with that, it was all the way to the last game of the season where we know how that story ended against United, and where Arsenal were at and that we were down early and that could have lost us the league. And then we won 4-2 because Sam Kerr's absurd. And, it still made it really exciting. So, yeah, I agree. It would be a good thing for United to beat them. Plus, going back, I know I wasn't on the United review, but United looks improved. I mean, to me, anyway, from where they were last year. I don't think that's going to be some sort of like easy fixture for Arsenal to kind of blow their way through. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And we'll see if the big pitch at the Emirates is going to impact either team.
Yeah, it should definitely be an interesting one. But we are going to take a quick ad break. When we come back, we will be having a look through some of your questions. All right. I feel like the question we are going to have to kick off with comes from Techie Tiger, and it is about Pernille Harder. For anyone who didn't know or doesn't know, Pernille Harder was playing for Denmark on Friday, I believe this was, and she basically very clearly pulled her hamstring. And there's no official news out of Denmark or Chelsea, but I don't think we're going to see Abdullah Harder playing for Chelsea for quite a while at this point. So, Abdullah, I'll come to you first on this one. What do you think the impact of Pernille's injury is going to be on this team? And what will we do to adapt around the situation? I kind of personally feel the adaptation is something that we are at least vaguely prepped for, because, oh my God, that Chelsea generally have pretty good, we're quite lucky with injuries normally, but Harder just feels like she never, ever gets a good run of games without getting one of these kind of 1 month, 2 month injuries.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like at one point you don't want Pernille Harder, arguably your best player, to be injured for so many spells of 1 month, 2 months. But at the same time, if you're talking about it from a adaptability perspective, then I guess Chelsea are semi-prepared for it. I mean, there was a point even earlier this season where Chelsea were playing without Pernille Harder for so many games, and it worked out. It worked out for them. So to an extent, so I guess it does sort of change the whole dynamic again, because when she did come back, it was very much. She did change the way Chelsea played, gave them a bit of fluency. She played really well as this number 10, and I felt like the whole system was designed for Pernille Harder to be playing as that number 10 in this 3-4-1-2 or 4-3-1-2 system, whatever you want to call it. But now that she's injured, I guess it's a great time for Frank Kirby to make a comeback. I think that's one thing to say, if she can. Otherwise, the girl Sam, Lauren James, Trident hasn't actually done too badly either. So I guess persisting with that isn't the worst thing in the world, but it is a concern, the fact that, we lose out on probably top 2 best players and the best player in the world. And that also coming into a couple of stretch of games where, against Real Madrid and PSG again will be key. We don't want to go into a situation like last year with the Champions League where, get knocked out of the group stages. So you want your best players there, obviously, but I would say Chelsea are better prepped this year than they were last year. But I Nick, what do you think about who's kind of the best replacement in the sense? Do you think it's a Fran, it's a Lauren James, or is it going to someone completely different?
I really don't know. I mean, I think because of the talent up there, right? There are so many different players who can play in multiple positions, and that, you didn't even, mention Beth England, who had a goal against Brighton coming in that one game. So I'm curious, I guess, because I think as the team has evolved, my thoughts around Pernille has kind of evolved, right? Like she's kind of played this like 8-10 where she's been able to run with the ball and make runs in behind and overlap with a striker or a winger to create extra space. And we know that she has insane dribbling talent and lethal finishing. I mean, that goal against Brighton from a close angle was absurd. And she's bailed us out a lot this year offensively, because we've not started that well in the attack, which is odd considering all the talent. But I guess I would be curious, Jessy, what you think about, how we line up formationally without Harder, because if we don't have like that true number 8/10, and what we have is maybe a 10-11 with Kirby, or a kind of jack of all trades with Lauren James, who can play anywhere, really just will carry the ball. Like, I think Lauren James might be more of like the traditional like for like swap because of her ability to carry the ball. But, you know, if you get Kirby back, you just kind of play her wherever you can, right? I mean, she's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only positive in inverted commas that comes out of this is if there's one area of the pitch Chelsea aren't really short of players, it is in this kind of attacking midfield, 10 quasi doing whatever they want to do role. I think based on form this season, you probably say, well, maybe you move James more centrally. That's always where she claims she prefers to play. And you put Canarid on the right for now, based on who we know is actually fit. You then obviously, have the options of hopefully, fingers crossed, Fran will be back soon. I don't really know what the fact, that she came on against Vlatsnia and then needed to take time out again means for that. Equally, Kankovic is a player who everyone's very excited over, but we've not really seen. But it seems to be that injury isn't a serious one, and hopefully maybe this extra week will have given her the time to get back and we can start seeing her play a bit more. I just think it's a tough one because I think Harder is such a unique player and we've seen Chelsea take their time, I think, to adapt to the way she wants to play. And every time it feels like we get in the rhythm of fitting her in, we get an interruption. And it's not that there's not the players there to replace her. It's more just sometimes it feels like we're starting from zero again, even when she comes back into the team. And I think that is part of the reason why we've never really seen peak Pernilla in a Chelsea shirt, because it's just been so stop-start for her. That being said, a fun thought experiment for a question that came in before Harder got injured. Obviously, it's not necessarily relevant now, although there is a caveat on it. But this is from Neon. Nick, I'll give this to you. Who do you drop from Wright and Harder, Kirby or James, if all of them are fit? It's tricky to fit them all into 11, even if the first lineup against Liverpool did have them all. Would you be going... The thing is, to me, I'm like, Emma Hayes will just, she's like at a poker table pushing all her chips into the middle of the table, that list of players. I'm sure we'll see it at some point if there is a point where they're all fit. But are you going to do the Hayes, the all-out attacking lineup, or would you be kind of keeping some of them sweet on the bench?
Guys, it's your classic 3-2-5 formation that we all know and love, okay? I mean, I think the answer is very simple. Or I guess a 4-1-5 formation would work too. If you prefer a 4 at the back. I mean, I honestly think right now the most undroppable player in our lineup is Guro Reiten, which is, I mean, if you would have said that 2 years ago, you would have been looked at like you were crazy. But I mean, she's just been on fire. I mean, she's taking people on. She has 1 billion assists in 3 games. That we'll check that stat. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but
FBref confirmed.
But she is the creator in this team right now, which is interesting because she's playing from a very kind of siphoned off position on the left. Like, she does get forward and obviously can move into the box a little bit, but that's not where she does some of her most dangerous work. It's the interchanges on the wings to get in behind. And it's some of those crosses in that are just pinpoint beautiful. I mean, so I think on its face with the biggest names up here, you would say, oh, yeah, you'd probably drop Guro Reiten. I think if you drop Guro, I don't know who your chance creator is in that group. Maybe Lauren, but someone has to pass the ball for it to be scored. And I've always been a huge fan of point guards in basketball because they set up play. I think that's Guro. So I don't know. I mean, Harder obviously being hurt makes that solution a lot easier for this question, but it might be harder for me.
Oh, damn. Watch out. The stands, Nick. They could come for you. I'm clipping that up.
Like, I'm not used to that shit already.
Abdullah, are you saying the same?
Oh, it's a tough one. I don't know. I think I agree with...
Get cancelled.
Come on, man. It's warm over here. Let's go.
I know. I'll come. Maybe I'll come through with a different one, right? Maybe, right? Okay, I agree with Wright and being undroppable, but if we're talking about Harder not playing as much, there's Kirby as well, and I think we've seen what Harder has done, and maybe a little bit more. So maybe Kirby gets dropped. I don't know. Again, it's tough. It's small margins, you know. So
this is proper just kill your darlings, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, pretty
you
much.
asked me to go. You asked me to go for a hot take, right? I mean, so here we are. Like, if I'm not doing this now, when am I doing it, right? But no, I think it's tough. Honestly, if I'm being real, it's tough. Like, how do you it's unthinkable to drop any of them, but then Harder, Kirby are the ones who've been most injury prone, and I think we need to see Kirby play a little bit more in this, you know, with this team to see what her effect is as against what Harder's already done. Because I think we've seen what Harder's capable of in this current team, whereas, you know, maybe Kirby hasn't played enough. So just by the virtue of appearances, I'm gonna say Kirby. But yeah, that's my call now.
It's close though. I mean, they're both injury prone. I mean, I think if you look at that list,
exactly,
it's tough.
It's tough. Well, exactly.
I think also what it's something Tim Stillman's actually said before is just that maybe the reality is for a player like Fran Kirby, sadly, it's not realistic to expect her to play a full season anymore the way she did, you know, 2 years ago in that comeback season. That maybe that's just something that physically she's not up to. And then so the serious version of this is you've got all these players because you're accepting that you're gonna wrap Fran saying hot and wall and bring her out for all the biggest games. I think if I'm taking peek of all these players, I'm probably actually dropping Lauren James, to be honest, just because I am just sad that I feel like we've never got a good run of Wrighton, Harder, and Kirby, like in a 4-2-3-1, because I still think, like, with the caveats of all these players being fit and in that kind of formation, I think that would be sick, and we've never really seen it properly, to be honest. So, sorry, LJ, you got plenty of time left. These other guys are older. I'm going to give them the run out for now. Nick, I'm going to come back to you on this question from Gamzangina30. Were there any notable differences in Chelsea's play or in-game management whilst Emma was out?
Yeah, there was a distinct lack of screaming, and I found that to be troubling. Look, I didn't notice anything tangibly on the pitch. I think in moments where you saw like stoppages for injuries or whatever at the beginning of the season, like there was a clear kind of huddle up mentality on the sideline to make sure that everyone had the right instructions from the AirPods that were in Denise Reddy's ears, which I don't know if that's a part of the standard recovery process from surgery or not, to still be working from the bedside, but that's
also, can I just say everyone has the AirPods in, like at the PSG game, I was like in the posh bit, so I could like see, like I was sat near Paul Green, he had the earphones in, Denise Reddy has everyone on the bench has is it just one feed from Emma, do we think, just like screaming
it's
into
a conference
their
call
ears?
It's a massive conference call.
First of all, can you imagine what that sounds like when things aren't going well? Ooh, I don't know.
You know when Emma's Wi-Fi wasn't working, someone went round, I reckon, with clippers.
Oh no, they're hot spotted up. There's no chance. Every precaution's been taken. But I don't know if the lineups, for example, would have changed if Emma was on the touchline or not. I doubt it, because she still has so much say in what's going on that I think she's picking the players. I think she's getting practice reports from Reddy and Paul Green. I think like there's probably not a ton to me that makes sense that would have changed necessarily. Do you guys get what I'm saying?
I think for me, the only thing maybe is around the speed at which we started certain games and that energy. I think, I agree. I think Emma is way too involved, even from her sofa, for there to be anything tactically or personnel-wise different. But like you kind of hinted at, Nick, I wonder if there is a difference about, listen, Denise Reddy is not a woman who I'd want to get on the wrong side of, but she's also not Emma. And I feel like maybe at points in games, there was a slowness to really get going that we might not have seen, I think, if Emma was on the sidelines, Abdullah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it was Paul Green or someone had said that even when she was sitting at home, that she was the one talking about the team, who's starting, who should be tactics that they're playing. So, I mean, if that's the case, then was Emma really truly gone? Except spiritually, she was always there controlling the team, but it's just physically she wasn't at the on the sideline.
Like she's looking at all the practice footage in detail.
Yeah.
Like I don't really. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a massive ass TV on the side of the training ground and there's like a Zoom call of her just sitting there going, right, move you
just barking at him.
Yeah, barking at the sprints down the line. Let's go. I see you at the back. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. No, I think Emma would have like taken a break in the sense that she physically wouldn't have had to go anywhere. So she's resting at home, but it's literally like working from home, but actually working from home. I think she took the definition literally. And I don't think going into an intense period like this, kind of a key season overall, that Emma would want to sort of I don't want to see relinquish control of the tactics per se and kind of leave it to her assistants. Not that she doesn't have any trust in them, but I think she's so wants to micromanage the situation in a way that she wants to make sure everything's meticulously detailed, that I think she would have been on the phone constantly saying, all right, how are we doing? Okay, we should do things like this. We should do that. And so I think what we're seeing is what we would have seen anyway. So I don't think there's any real difference in what's going, except for the in-game sort of gestures and antics and things like that.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what stuff's like when she's back. Because part of me has wondered also if the players have benefited from not having that level of micromanagement on the side of the field. But I think Emma can be quite varied, I think, in the level of micromanagement she does from game to game. But we've got a question from Clayton at goalie59, friend of the pod, Clayton. Abdullah, I will come to you. This is a two-part question, so I'll come to you with the first part. Why do you think Khadijah Buchanan has, and this is in inverted commas, struggled?
Why has Khadijah Buchanan struggled? Excellent question. I think it's the question that we're all asking ourselves. Why have you struggled? No,
there's really, probably a job in Chelsea's analysis department if you answer this well.
If I answer this, I could probably get a job. It's fine. No, I think coming into a team that's playing with a three. I think first of all, I think it's the three at the back system. I think Khadijah's coming from a team that has traditionally played four at the back. And I think in that four at the back, there was clear roles defined for Wendy Renard and Grijem Bok and Khadijah Buchanan, right? Whenever they played, they had a set role. They knew what they had to do, and they kind of played this dominant style every game they played, whether it was the Champions League, the domestic league, the cup, whatever, right? Because they were such a dominant team, when they were playing at the time and all that. Where I think coming to Chelsea, I think you're playing in a three, but you're also playing with two tremendously powerful and aggressive centre backs. And I think having to get used to playing with two players that in their own right are world class on their day, they're their best. And you honestly, you don't want to be dropping either of them. So I think one, she had to adapt to that. Two, I think obviously it's a new team. You can't come from playing at a team like Lyon for 5-6 years, come to another team that's equally, if not as powerful in terms of their status and stature and power in the team in the league, and just expect to slot in and play, especially when it's a different system. You're playing from 1 minute, it's a possession game, the next minute it's a counter-attacking side. The system's changing from a 3 to a 4. So I think she had to adapt, and again, a new country, new system. So I think all those combinations, surrounded, I think she needed to adapt to. And I think we've noticed that playing as a center back is probably not her best suite. And she played there for the longest time. And the minute we saw her come out to a wider position, she just felt more comfortable. And I think it affected the rest of the team, that confidence level. And I think we saw when Millie Bright was playing centrally, it was easier to control. All right, I have Magda on my left, who I'm used to playing week in, week out for the last 2, 3, 4 seasons, to now, okay, I only have to manage Khadijah Buchanan on my right in terms of communication, because whereas before, if Millie's on the right side, she's talking to Khadijah on her left, and she's talking to Yves Parisset on her right. That's two new players she has to manage and control, get used to the system, kind of play them through the match where they get set. They're experienced players, no doubt, but just to kind of get them into the intricacies of the system. All right, maybe, okay, just don't forget to track back. And I think that kind of maybe affected their form as well. So switching positions into the right role, getting used to the culture, the atmosphere, and kind of coming into a team where you're playing alongside some massive names alongside you.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. I mean, Millie and Khadijah really play the same position, and it's difficult to pick one of those two. They're both incredible players, but Millie is far more comfortable, and the team is comfortable around her playing in that role. I thought it was an interesting and bold choice to move Khadijah out to the right-hand side. And I think, frankly, from a athleticism perspective, it will be helpful, especially if we do end up playing this 3-back and our wing backs get a little disconnected. It's helpful to have Khadijah's athleticism on that side, and maybe have a little bit more of a stout presence in the middle with Millie, who's able to maybe control play with passing a little bit better. So I see the value in that. But the Parasite one is also a bit of a conundrum for me, because I think Niamh Charles is just playing out of her skin right now in a lot of ways. And then, I think the surprise of the whole season right now is Niamh Charles, whether it be on the left or on the right. And then you add in the fact that Lauren James is kind of playing this like hybrid right wing back, right winger, get into the box, do whatever magic you can role. I think it's just been hard to kind of define if we're going to play Parasite in a right wing back role or in a traditional right back role, Jessy. So I think it's a good problem to have. You have a bunch of players playing above themselves, and you have this new player who you think is going to be really good, but it's hard to go against form.
Yeah, so this touches on the second half of Clayton's question: why is Parasite not getting more minutes? And I think, Nick, you basically hit the nail on the head there. I think, firstly, Chelsea have been looking to have more competition in those spots. Obviously, fullback's an area where over the past couple of seasons we've kind of lacked in depth there. And then you've kind of got this funny thing where, as Nick says, Niamh Charles has had a very, very good start to the season, and she got back into the England squad as a result of it. She started for England on Friday, and she looked very good for England too. And I think there's a sense of a player there maybe taking the same step forward that we saw Jess Carter take last season. And I think that's really exciting for Chelsea. I think it's exciting for Charles. And I think it's good for Parasite, because this is, even though Parasite is an older player and she is an experienced player, she's played at big clubs before, but Bordeaux is not Chelsea. Like, this is still a step forward for her. And for us to be able to allow her, I think, to have that time to bed in, to get used to who she's playing with, build those relationships. And I think also have players who you want to use for different games. We've obviously seen Maren play there. She's been out more recently. She's had a hamstring problem. But, Maren came in for the City game there and had a really, really good game. And I think we've seen Charles come in for games which are maybe more physical, and because she looks really hench at the moment. And I think that's something that's, she's really physically filled out over the past couple of seasons in a way that's helped too. And, Parasite is a bit more slight, I would say, than Niamh. So I think realistically, it's just great to have those options. I still think over the course of the season, we'll see Eve playing the most minutes out of anyone in that right back position when it comes down to it. I think it will get to a point where, if we are in the latter stages of the Champions League, she will be the first choice there. But if she's not, I think it will be just because Niamh Charles has kind of overtaken her. So it's kind of a win-win from a Chelsea perspective.
It's definitely a win-win. And it makes me also think, because we've talked about all the positions that Eve can play. She's a very versatile player, right? She's played in midfield before. She's played at left back before, clearly played at right back for France and did really well in the summer's tournament. Do we think that there's a possibility that you can slot her into midfield in games where you want to be more defensively compact and have a faster Niamh Charles playing right wing back to kind of shore up everything? I'm curious about that, because we haven't really seen Eve get into midfield quite yet. Either one.
Abdullah, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sorry, Mike was on mute. I think Niamh playing in midfield would be an interesting choice. I think again it comes down to where, we've seen Niamh Charles play in these wing back positions, and they've been, she's been really good in those positions. But it's like further forward, in a weird way, though, she's a natural wide attacking player. That's what she came to at Liverpool and kind of growing up. But I don't think we've seen Niamh Charles in a more attacking position on a regular basis. So it'd be interesting to see if you want the same kind of attributes and dynamics from a Niamh Charles that she's shown at fullback in a wider position in an attacking front, what that would do. Maybe that would give something to Chelsea that would be completely different to what they already have. I wouldn't mind seeing Niamh Charles go right and then Sam Kerr as a front three. I think that would give you such a different dynamic going forward. Someone who's got maybe on the right-hand side, someone who's now developed this slightly defensive positioning and understanding alongside Anif Perisset. So maybe it could even be a tactical setup, right? When you want to play essentially two players who can play right back or right wing back, and you can pair up Perisset and Charles on the right-hand side. So there are options of playing Niamh Charles in different positions in midfield or in attack. I think it just comes down to tactically how you want to face up against the team that you're going up against.
Yeah, I mean, again, this just all comes back to the fact that Chelsea buy players who can play in lots of different positions, and that's kind of the whole point is figuring them out. I definitely would like to see Perisset in midfield at some point, but it hasn't happened yet, so I don't know if it is going to happen, but it would definitely be an interesting one for me. Nick, I will throw this one to you. This was an anonymous question. Do you think this season will be the one where we finally see Chelsea that is a cohesive team in games where it's evident all over the pitch rather than relying on players who provide the moments of magic when you need them? It feels like that's the missing key that you guys need if you want to be successful in Europe.
So this is clearly from a non-Chelsea fan.
It is from a non-Chelsea fan. I will protect that. I don't density any further. But yeah, I think this question is getting at, and I think this is true, right? That maybe, I don't know if I'd agree that Chelsea aren't like a cohesive team, but I think definitely there is a sense that in the past we have relied on, players having amazing games, for example, or amazing runs of games, rather than players performing at a like 6 out of 10, but collective 8 out of 10 and like getting shit done. And I think for me, this is something that has maybe started to change this season.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be this season necessarily. I think there's too many new players for that sort of cohesion that you see with some of the best teams in the world, your Lyons or Barcelona's or whatever. But I do think you'll see some improvement there. The moments of magic piece, I think, is very much indicative of how our forwards just play. And where, we don't have a standard attacking sort of structure in a lot of ways. A lot of it's dynamic and kind of comes from different areas and is more unpredictable, which I think is good. But I think it does at times stretch the distances between our attack and our midfield and our defense. And sometimes it does look disjointed because of that. So maybe not this season fully, but certainly next season.
Yeah, I think definitely it's something that feels like it's moving to a better place. And I think control is, if I was going to sum up actually the start of our season so far, that would be the word that I think would stand out to me in terms of when we're talking about the PSG game, when we're talking about even that Manchester United game when we conceded to Rousseau but had kind of a shaky 10 minutes, but being able to take back control, but get a grip on the game and be able to slow things down, put our foot on the ball, even score, obviously is the case for United. I think that's something that is indicative of having a more cohesive team structure. But we're going to take another quick break. Then we're going to come back. We've got a couple more questions, but these are fun ones. So guys, get your light comedy hats on. All right. Okay. Abdullah, I'm coming to you first for this one. From Meme Astronaut at Pippa21336. If you could have a player, brackets, or staff member on the pod for an interview, who would be your dream get and what would you ask them about?
Oh, I think it's this one. I've got two. One is a bit more of the memes. You got to get the meme queens, Jared Musovic on. just to get the banter going. I think that would
fun.
be
That'd be
that
fun.
would be fun. I think that would be the funnest interview we could have. Just ask her about all the banter, all the memes that's going on inside. I think that for me would be the funniest one. So I would want to do that. And just basically say, what do you guys do? What are the inside jokes? What's going on? So I think that would be one in terms of comedic value and just kind of getting to know the culture inside. But I think from putting my analyst hat on, if I had to pick one, for me, the dream would be, I think, Pernilla Harder or Sam Kerr, just to kind of understand, their positioning, their movements, what do they do, how do they like to play, what systems they like to fit into, and their movements, to kind of the small details that they thrive off of. And for me, that would be the analytical dream interview, if I could say that from this Chelsea side. But what about you, Nick and Jessy?
Yeah, mine's always Emma. I've had the chance to sit down and have a couple of beers with her, and I just imagine that an interview would be fun and insightful, and would challenge probably some perceptions that you have of the team or even of her as a person. And I think she seems like a deeply thoughtful human, as well as funny as hell. So I think that's the dream get. I think if I had to go with a player, and it would have to be in a bar setting with beers attached, then I would love to get Sam, because I feel like there would just be shenanigans all over the place, and I am a fan of shenanigans.
I would also love to have a beer with Sam Kerr. I think I would maybe go with Pernilla, just because I think she's a player who obviously is very thoughtful, both on footballing things and social things. But I think she's also someone who, on the pitch, comes across as quite steely, even cold sometimes, very professional. But I think when you see her interviewed and in certain situations when she really opens up, you see this totally different side to her. And I think that would be like a really enjoyable thing, to be able to talk about her career and how she sees football, but maybe also have that opportunity to see that different side to her, which I don't think we've ever really, like in the interviews she's done, she's always like doing them as Pernilla Harder. But I think it'd be really interesting to see that in a Chelsea context specifically.
Very quickly, Nick, who are we talking to about footwear and sneakers? Who's got the best sneaker game in that? We got to ask somebody that question.
That's got to be Khadisha, no?
Khadisha's a baller, so she's got game. I think Sam goes for a bit more of the plain Air Force Ones, white Air Force Ones. I've seen it around. But I think right now Khadisha's coming and taking, because her nickname is Khadisha Baller. She was nicknamed Baller at Lyon, so it's got to be Khadisha. But I mean, if there's anything, keep Khadisha out of this. Who else is there? We got to figure someone out.
I reckon LJ's probably got some good drip.
There's no doubt. I mean, outside of whatever Reese was wearing this weekend, the blue fuzzy suit.
I'm obsessed with that. It looks so warm. I'm going to be at Kings Meadow with that in December, guys, when the temperature drops.
We need a full episode on the fashion and sneaker wear of the Chelsea teams. We need to do a full episode on on the trends going on. Remember the green Reece James look a few weeks ago? The green hair with the Gucci jacket. I mean, like, we've got to be asking these questions now. We got to go through it.
Drip. Yeah, I don't know who else has really good drip on the team. That's a really good question.
Emma wears a few dunks on the sidelines. I've seen that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but she loves an absolutely awful outfit generally.
Yeah,
so.
Fair enough. But I keep looking at the sneakers. She wears the pandas. A couple of times I've seen that. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do some journalistic investigation.
All right, next international break, Abdullah. You're coming to us with this app.
Yes.
We look forward to it.
I'm doing it.
The Christmas WSL break when we need to get extra content going. Okay.
Done.
Next question, guys, from Bill Offright. If you were stuck in an elevator or lift, as the British call it, what three players would you want to be stuck with? This also makes me laugh because I don't know if you guys have seen that. I think it was the WSL did a TikTok where they asked all the Chelsea players who they didn't want to be stuck in a lift with, and everyone said Aaron Cuthbert.
All of them. I was like what?
Everyone said Aaron Cuthbert and Guru Wrighton, and it was like because Guru would be too stressed and Aaron would be too noisy.
Fair enough.
Okay.
You know what? I'm taking Erin. Erin's one of
You
my.
want to be in the lift with Erin?
I think she's hilarious. When we interviewed her, I was like, "This is what a delight." I would take Erin. I would, and then I would just watch the couple struggles of Magda and Pernilla, and who decided what and why, and it would kind of be like couples therapy. It'd be fun.
Yeah, I love that.
Man.
Abdullah?
That's interesting. You know what? I'll take Erin because I backed Erin for the last 18 months. I might as well back her here as well. All right, Erin, you're in the
Taking
elevator.
Erin.
Let's take. Oh God, who else do you want to take in? You know what? Let's just go with the younger crowd. Let's get Neve Charles and let's get LJ in there, and let's just see how the young crowd deals with being stuck in a lift and how they manage to get out. Because it's just interesting to see at that age what do they do? How do we get out of there? Do we break their way out? Do they find their way out? Let's see what they do. So that would be my interesting take.
So I'm gonna go for Millie, just because she seems like a great combo of funny, good chat, but also calm. I can't imagine her getting particularly flustered by the lift situation. And then I think I'd go for Sam, also just for entertainment value, because I think her and Millie as a combo would be
flying.
Exactly, would be a lot of fun. And then I might go for Jess Carter, because I feel like it's going to be good chat, but she's maybe going to be like a level of extra chill. So if Millie and Sam get a bit too much, I'm just going to chat to Jess and keep it low key. I feel like, it being in a relationship with AKB, that kind of cool calmness has rubbed off on Jess.
I think you want to avoid the pranksters at all costs, because that would be a long, however many.
Someone said that. I think it might have been Anik. Maybe it was someone else, but they were worried that Sam would be like jumping up and down in the lift to try and like shake it and stuff like that. That's why they were like, not Sam.
And Guru has the mischief about her, like just pure unadulterated mischief. You can't be on an elevator that long.
But on TikTok, they were making out like actually she would be just like pure anxiety. So it would be the opposite direction.
Freaked. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I wonder who would be the most nervous of all of them. I could see Fran being nervous.
I could see Fran being nervous. Yeah.
Yeah,
I could see Fran getting quite stressed. Jessie Fleming maybe as well. I know she's like ice cold, but I feel like there's also, I could imagine that in like a practice, she's the kind of player who maybe on the football pitch it's just chill, but in real life it's like quite different.
Well, like you don't want a type A person in there. You need someone who can just let it happen,
But I wonder why Guru would be so. Guru doesn't look like someone who's stressed out a lot, though. So I'm wondering why.
Apparently she does.
Why is it?
Apparently
Maybe Eve Perisset would be chill. Maybe Eve Perisset would be chill. She doesn't seem too crazy out there in person. So that's another one to think about. But AKB would just. I think AKB just the Germanness in her. Just
I feel like she just punched through the doors and then take us all out. Like Incredible Hulk style.
Exactly. We go for it.
No lifts at Kings Meadow, so hopefully we don't have to worry about that one anytime soon. Final question before we have a quick look ahead to the games coming up in November, December. It comes from Millhouse. My wife, baby, and I will be in London for the game. I assume this is the Chelsea Spurs game at Stamford Bridge. Where will you all be getting pre-game pints? I assume this might be more relevant to me, but Abdullah, what will you be doing before the Chelsea Spurs game?
I will probably, it's a Sunday at 5:00 my time, so I'll probably be home chilling before the game, having a glass of water, I guess.
All right, you can chill with Abdullah and have a glass of water. Nick, what were you doing?
Well, if I was in London, I would be up to shenanigans, and those shenanigans would start at the Cock Tavern most likely, and then evolve as the day evolved. As it will be early my time, I will probably be grabbing a cup of coffee and settling in for what could be a tasty affair.
And I will be in London, and I might do shenanigans. So I'm thinking I will get pre-game pints probably at the Butcher's Hook from around 12:30. So if anyone wants to come and say hi, please come and say hi. Millhouse, bring your wife and your baby. And anyone else who wants to come along. So
Start them young, Millhouse. I like
exactly.
it. Well
That's it. That's the way to get
you
it
can
done.
You can have the coffee and the water on behalf of both of us for being there. With
We're in
we'll get them lined up. Yeah.
All three lined up.
I'll buy you a bourbon from afar, and that way you can enjoy that. All right.
Perfect. All right. So yes, Chelsea do play Spurs at Stamford Bridge a week today. And then we've got Real Madrid. We have got Leicester City, Real Madrid again, Reading, Vlasnia, and PSG. And that takes us all the way up to Christmas.
Packed month, man. Oof.
Yeah. What are you thinking about all of this?
Well, it would be really nice if United beat Arsenal so that things are not so win all the time, every game kind of pressure like that I think they had last year. Because I think that ended up hurting us in the Champions League a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the Real Madrid games, I mean, that's basically if you're able to come out of that with a win and a draw, it kind of secures you for the next round, it feels like, in this group from just like a math perspective. If you come out with 2 wins, you're definitely going. But those are the two that you got to look at as must wins if you want to advance or at least get as many points as possible from, because after that you have PSG, after that you have Vlasnia, which the Vlasnia game should be pretty well in hand after the 8-0 drubbing the other day. And then you got to figure out how to beat PSG at home. But yeah, it's a big month for the Champions League. It's like October on the men's side where you just had rapid fire games all in a row in the Champions League. Yeah,
it's a lot. Abdullah, do you look at this and feel worried? Because obviously this is kind of the time of year where we did come unstuck last season. Obviously we had the amazing FA Cup win and then it absolutely went to shit in December. So we've seen how quickly these months can unravel, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think but I think the key difference is obviously, like you said, the FA Cup final. I think last season was all right, build up to the FA Cup final. They won it, and I think maybe the high just came down a little bit, and then maybe the season unraveled because of that. But I think this time, I think Chelsea will be a little bit better prepared, especially in the Champions League, knowing what happened last year, coming up against 2 big teams in Wolfsburg and Juventus. And I think they won't give Real Madrid an inch this time, especially with the fact that the first game is at home on the 23rd. So I think that's a good advantage. If you can get the 3 points there, it puts less pressure going away from home and having to secure 3, if not 1 point coming away from there. So I think Champions League, I'm not too worried about. But the 3 games in the WSL against Tottenham, Leicester, and Reading, I think are going to be absolutely crucial because, like Nick said, if United can do a job on Arsenal, I think that would be a whole lot of pressure off those 3 games. And it's a key month. I mean, it's a key month in terms of the league, in terms of the Champions League, and I think in terms of momentum and confidence. Because if you go into these games and you put in good performances and you pick up regular 3 points in each of the 2 different competitions, it takes them great stead into that international break. And then obviously that first game back against Arsenal on the 15th, I think will become once again, title defining moment. So confidence and momentum going into that Arsenal game, I think is major key over everything else. And yeah, so I think they can do it. I think it should, but they should have learned from this time last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Champions League obviously will be the priority. I've said all season that the Champions League run is more important to me than winning the WSL. So honestly, I care more about smashing through these games and looking good in that competition. I'd obviously like it to be both, not an either or, but if it is to be an either or, that's the one that I've got my eye on. Honestly, having watched Real Madrid, like I went to the Clasico and stuff, we should get 6 points. If we don't get 6 points, we're not going to seriously compete in the Champions League for me, given the level that I think that team is at right now. Obviously, things can happen, but I just think they're the teams that we should, at this point, be a step above. And fingers crossed, the Leicester and the Reading games are kind of opportunities for us to rotate successfully. Spurs, I think, will be interesting at the Bridge. I was there the last time they played this game there on the opening day of the 1920 season, and it was truly a deeply boring game that I mainly remember from being fascinated by Ashley Neville's haircut, which has gone on to fascinate many people in the WSL. So there was also a rather iconic Beth England goal, so maybe more of that this time round. But we'll be back to review that game when we get going. Fortunately, it's quite a short international break, so thank you, Abdullah and Nick, for joining me today to answer everyone's questions.
Thank you.
I hope you had
Welcome.
fun.
It's very, very fun.
Great. Awesome. So we'll be back to talk to all you guys soon. Until then, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.